Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria QK.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. This is our first episode of 2025, and a lot has happened over the past couple weeks since before we went on our little break before Christmas.
Well, technically, we did release an episode last week after the New Year break, but this is our first episode back from break.
Wait, what episode?
We had a 6 shocking stories.
Yeah, but that wasn't a news episode.
No, it wasn't a news episode, and we recorded that quite a while before it came out. So
Yeah.
Even when I was editing it the day before it came out, I was like, wow, I don't even remember recording this, and it was only 2 weeks before.
We did a lot of work before Christmas, so we could be off for a little bit. But I took a road trip with the girls and Gabe, and you were just kind of relaxing at home and still holding down the fort over here. So,
and of course, every time you're like, okay, I'm going on a 2-week road trip. I'm like, yes, I have off for 2 weeks. I'm going to get so much done. And every single time I get sick. So that's what I was dealing with. It was like the craziness of the holiday. And then, when I was finally like, cool, I have a couple days, maybe I'll go like shopping or do something fun. No, a cold strikes. And then that led me up until pretty much today. So really enjoyable as always.
Yes, exactly. So, all right, we've been a lot of shit has happened since Christmas, really, and so we decided that this week we're going to do a couple true crime stories because most of the news that have happened this week that have been really, or the past 2 weeks that have been really dramatic, have been true crime stories. So we'll touch on a couple of them today, but on Thursday we're going to do a special true crime only episode with a special guest.
Yeah, that's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. All right, should we kick it off?
Yeah, let's do the story of the day.
All right, so last week this guy was on a United flight. He was going from San Francisco to the Philippines with his stepdaughter. So after about 4 hours, he said he was sleeping and his stepdaughter saw this stranger suddenly get up from his seat. He walked over to her stepdad and then he peed on him.
So this is my question. Like, he pulled his penis out and peed on the guy? Because otherwise he had to have, right? Because if the guy just stood up next to him and peed, it wouldn't have gotten out of his pants. It would have dribbled down his pants, right? So he pulled out his penis and peed on a person on the airplane?
He had to have done it that way because how else are you going to pee on somebody like that unless you're sitting on their lap and you pee yourself, which obviously that didn't seem to happen. And the stepdaughter said that he woke up in the middle of it and just thought he was in a dream, so he wasn't even reacting at first to it because he was like, there's no way this person is peeing on me right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, we can't fault him, right? Most people don't wake up from a nap and have someone urinating on them, so we could understand that.
No, and apparently this is not the only time this has happened. Apparently there was a flight many years ago where a person peed on another airline passenger and they were arrested for it. In this case, it doesn't seem like this guy was arrested, but he has been banned from flying on United. I don't know if he's banned from flying on every other commercial airliner as well.
Yeah, that was my question too, because it's like, oh, who cares? There's so many other airlines. But so what happened when the daughter saw this, and what happened?
So basically they go up to the flight attendant and they're like, this stranger just peed on my stepfather. And they said, please don't confront him because they're scared of him getting violent. They didn't make an emergency landing or anything, but they gave the man that was peed on some pajamas so he could wear for the rest of the flight. And then when they got to the airport in the Philippines, they said that there was some passenger disagreement or something. And that's when they decided they were going to ban him from flying on any future flights. And apparently the guy apologized and was begging them not to press charges. But like, what happened? Why did you pee on a stranger?
Yeah. Is it possible that he was also on like Ambien or something and got up to go to the bathroom and was kind of, I don't know, high or drunk or something and just didn't realize that he wasn't in the bathroom? Because it doesn't seem like there was any kind of a fight that they knew each other or anything. it's just kind of random that you would get up and pee on somebody. I mean, aside from it being just gross, there's not really a risk of infection for the most part. You can carry viruses and bacteria in your urine, and if your urine's bloody, you can, in theory, you could transmit bloodborne pathogens that way. But I mean, it's just mostly gross, right? Like, it's disgusting for someone to pee on somebody. It's definitely not cool. But I think the daughter was like really upset about the way that the airline handled it.
Well, I guess when you think of the other case that they were talking about, that person got arrested, and it's like, do you just let somebody go for doing this with a slap on the wrist? Like, you can't fly on this airline anymore? I don't think they should have made an emergency landing or anything, but I don't know. I think, United's facing a lot of backlash for how they handled it and asking the person that was peed on not to confront the man, and I don't know what you would really do in that situation. They can't just land the plane because of it, but should they have detained him in some type of way so he couldn't have done it to somebody else?
I'm telling you that we had a similar situation. I've already talked about this on the show when me and my friend Andrea were going to a PA conference years ago, and some guy was jerking off on the airplane in front of us, sitting right next to us. And we told the flight attendants, and they just said, listen, this is your only option. The flight's full. We can't move you. We could tell the pilot, and the pilot can make an emergency landing, or you could just deal with it. And they stood there and they kind of like watched over the situation just to make sure that we weren't getting like sexually assaulted or anything. But other than that, what else can they do? I do understand why they told them not to confront the passenger, because you can't be having shit like that going down when you're up in the air and there's nothing that you can do about it, especially flying to like Philippines where they over the ocean and there was no chance of them landing anytime soon. I mean, you have to think that there's hundreds of other people on the flight and their lives are in danger as well, And it's just pee. It's pee, dude. Just like it I agree, it sucks, right? But like,
with that thought though, what about the person sitting next to the pier? So then, were they also keeping a watchful eye on everybody else he interacted with for the duration of the flight?
Do you want them to land the airplane in the ocean and have people like use their inflatable device? Which, by the way, I took an airplane yesterday to come home. So we drove from New Jersey all the way to Las Vegas and then flew home yesterday from Las Vegas. And we were going through they put that thing around their neck and they're showing you how to inflate it. And I just said to Gabe, like, what are the fucking statistics that anyone has ever used this thing and actually survived a flight? It's just some box checking bullshit. Seriously. Like, we were driving from Las Vegas to New Jersey. You might have went over like a stream the whole time. I didn't see a body of water the entire time we flew. Like, why are we even talking about this right now?
They just have to, because it's regulation.
Yeah. So anyway, but seriously, like that would have been the only option, right? This is why we always want to say we always want to talk to flight attendants to see like what do you have, a spare pair of pajamas in case anybody like pees or poops themselves? Like, you know what I mean? There's so many questions of all this different stuff that could happen, but
I have many questions for flight attendants. I feel like they're frequently coming up.
Yeah, I know. But like, think about this. Like, you see this there's video after video online of all the shit that's going down in the New York subway system, right? Like, people are peeing there was a guy that was just peeing on his body all over the floor in front of a full train of people the other day. Like, when you're kind of trapped in a situation, there's only so much stuff you could do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. It definitely sucks for this guy, but what's he going to do at this point? I mean, I feel like they'll probably try to sue United or something. I don't know if they're going to try to press charges on the guy. What can you do?
I'm not sure if you could sue, because, I mean, it is emotional distress for sure. That would be so terrible. I think about that, like, if a person gets spit on or anything, it's just like, you don't ever want anybody's fluids on you, but I don't know.
I
All right.
feel like this just turns into one of those family stories that's like, remember that time that guy peed on you on the plane?
Oh, it's a good story.
Yeah.
It's similar to my the guy jerking off next to us on the plane. That was and like I said, I still have a picture of the guy that's so whenever Andrea texts me, like that's her picture is this guy that jerked off in front of us years
Yeah.
ago. Okay, celebrity news.
All right, so socialite Jocelyn Wildenstein, aka the Catwoman, has died at age 84.
This lady is outrageous looking.
Yeah, she was kind of, I feel like the first face of botched plastic surgery.
I don't think that she considers herself to have botched plastic surgery. Like, I think that she wants to look like a cat.
Well, I was looking into her past a little bit, and she had been married to some billionaire, and they got divorced, and she got like a settlement of $2 billion. And then I think she also got yearly installments of $13 million or something outrageous. So she never really worked or anything, but she did file for bankruptcy at some point eventually. But she got,
How? Like, how? I just don't even understand it.
because I think people just go crazy and just start spending all their money, not realizing there is in fact an end to the bank account instead of
I don't even understand how you spend your one yearly installment, let alone, I just can't wrap my brain around it. Anyway, continue.
I don't know, but when her and her husband were married, they said a year after her marriage, this was the late 70s, probably about the year you were born, like 79, they got his and hers eye surgery. So I wonder what he looked like. But basically,
her new guy looks like he's got a ton of work done.
Oh,
He's
of
got
course.
that like pseudo Ken doll looking face.
Yeah, of course. So they were in Paris over New Year's Eve. Her partner, who is about 30 years younger than her, said that they went to take a nap, and when they woke up, she was cold, and she has died from an apparent pulmonary embolism.
Yeah, she had a condition called phlebitis, which is inflammation of the vessels or the veins in your leg in particular, and that could cause so when the veins in your leg bring the blood back up from your legs to your heart, and if they're inflamed and the blood can't go through them very well, then the blood could clot, and then those clots could break off and travel to your lungs and cause instant death. So that's what happened with her. That's a known risk factor of that, but she was pretty old, right? Like
She was 84.
well, there's speculation that she might have been anywhere from 79 to 84 because nobody really knows what her birthday is, which is a surprise. But a lot of, I mean, she knew that people called her the cat lady, and she said that she wasn't particularly offended by that. Like, and she had an obsession with cats. So I think that she was like really trying to look like one, honestly.
Well, and for people that aren't familiar with her, she did kind of have this similar facial structure to a lion.
She does. It's not botched plastic surgery. She doesn't look like a human.
Like, I think because I've seen other older women that, they start off with a little bit of filler, a little bit of Botox, they get a facelift, the facelift doesn't go right, so then they keep going back and adjusting it more and more and more. And then I feel like they start getting this cat-like appearance, but maybe she just leaned into it a little more because of her procedures. I feel like getting plastic surgery like that in the 70s is kind of crazy too, because we have to think like Dolly Parton was really one of the first people to show off having a breast augmentation, and that was crazy for that time.
No, I know it was. It's just, do you ever look at these super like rich and famous people? Particularly, I'll mention something like this woman, Michael Jackson's another obvious, but even like Kris Jenner, like people that are like really starting to look like freaks with their plastic surgery. And you're like, what surgeon is doing this work to these people that they don't even look human anymore? Like, you look at Lindsay Lohan and you're like, oh, what a fine surgeon. Like, what a fucking good surgeon. Like,
Yeah,
she
but
looks like,
let's say with her, for example, though, she looks incredible right now. But let's say she gets another procedure done in a couple years that gets botched, and then she keeps going in to fix it, and then she starts taking on this cat-like appearance.
I don't know. I just think that I definitely think there's like a whole dysmorphia thing that people get that they don't have enough in this and that, but there needs to be someone there that's just like, okay, let's just slow it down a little bit. You're not looking anywhere near a human being anymore. But yeah, so she's dead. Sad story.
Well, another person who has died over the weekend was this influencer. Her name was Carol Acosta. Her Instagram handle was Aquila Demente.
Okay, and do you know how was she an influencer? Like, what was she doing?
So she had over 6 million followers, which is
Whoa,
a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Especially on today's climate with Instagram. But it seems like, she was really focused on promoting body positivity. I know that she had released a song in recent years. But over the weekend, she was out to dinner with some family and she started to choke and unfortunately died.
So I have a couple questions. Obviously, they're going to do an autopsy. They haven't really said much. And I think one of her family members was saying that she was eating and she started choking and that was it. And a couple articles said, oh, her cause of death has not been released, but her friends and family say she died from cardiopulmonary arrest, which is my fucking favorite term of all times because that's how everyone dies. So that is how she died. Everyone's right. That's how she died. But when someone's choking like that while they're eating, it could really be caused by two different things. One is just like a normal choking on the food. And then the other one is that she could have had some kind of an acute allergic reaction to something that closed up her airway really tightly very quickly. So when they do the autopsy, they'll definitely check for that. But one interesting thing that I wanted to note was that this influencer she was talking about how she was on Ozempic for weight loss. And Ozempic is known to cause gastroparesis, which is a slowing down of the GI tract. So the theory is that it keeps food inside of your stomach for a longer time and it causes digestion to be slower, which is helping with the weight loss. But it also can cause GERD, which is gastroesophageal reflux disease, which could cause difficulty swallowing in some people. So I don't know if she was having any of these symptoms associated with taking that medication.
Yeah, I did see that she's been promoting weight loss stuff. She had a link in her bio for it.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's like, I'm not trying to say that that's what happened, but that's just know that that's complications with that. So they'll do an autopsy, and even if she did die or choke in the traditional sense of food got lodged, I don't know if they'll really be able to contribute it to any kind of weight loss medication or whatever, because people do just choke as well. But it's sad though. She's young. She had young kids, so.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to, because to me, it's like choking can happen, but it seems like a preventable death, right? But we don't really know exactly what caused it, so.
It's just weird in a person her age. If it's a kid under 5 or it's an adult that like doesn't have teeth or just doesn't have their neurological abilities as much as they used to, an older person, elderly, then you would say, okay, like they're the most common people that choking deaths happen to. So she was 20 something. How old was she?
Yeah, 27, I
27,
think.
like a 27-year-old healthy woman shouldn't be choking on her food like that. But I mean, shit happens. So we'll see. We'll let you guys know if we hear the autopsy cause of death.
Yeah. All right. So coming up is the 30th anniversary of Selena's murder when she was 23 years old.
30 years? That is insane to me.
Well, I was 4 months old when this happened?
Yeah, I wasn't. And I remember when this happened. It's just crazy
to me. You had
a
baby at this time. Yeah, so the murder occurred on March 31st, 1995. So the anniversary is coming up. And last week, her killer, Yolanda, which was her super fan and her murderer, has now filed for parole.
Well, tell them why she wants to leave prison.
She said people are threatening her.
If she gets released from prison, she will get like beat in the streets by Selena fans. People like hate this woman. She's going to have a worse time out of prison.
I don't understand.
Which she shouldn't even get out of prison. Like we talk about this all the time, but
I don't think she should get out of prison because for people, I don't know who wouldn't be familiar with this story. I feel like this is one of the most popular, murders of all time. I was only a baby when it happened and I know everything about it. But basically, Selena had hired this woman, Yolanda, to work for her. She was her like #1 super fan in the world. She was absolutely obsessed with her. And then at some point, Selena's family figured out that Yolanda was embezzling money from them. So Selena begrudgingly fired her. She didn't even want to fire her. She wanted to think the best of this woman. So then they go to this hotel and there's this confrontation. Yolanda claims that Selena was threatening to shoot herself, but what we think really happened and what she was convicted of was that she got, in a craze and shot Selena because it was one of those, like, if I can't have you, nobody can moments, right?
Yeah, and she shot her. There's documentation that she went to and purchased, got a gun permit, went and bought the gun
After she was fired.
after she was fired. She shot her with a hollow point bullet, which is they're ones that you would typically use in home defense because what happens is when you shoot it, it opens up like a flower petal, and it's good for if you're living in a house or an apartment building because it would get stuck in a wall and it wouldn't travel through multiple walls or something like that. Well, less likely to anyway. But they're illegal in New Jersey, those types of bullets, because what happens when they hit a body is the same exact thing. They open up and they open up like a flower petal, and instead of it being just like a skinny little path of destruction, it opens it up to be much wider. So it does the most tissue damage when you shoot somebody with one of those things. So even though she shot her with a .38 caliber bullet, it ended up severing her subclavian artery, which is one of the major arteries coming off the aorta, and which is not as bad as getting shot in the aorta, which was to her advantage because she was able to walk a little bit and tell people who shot her. But then she dropped down and basically bled out right there. The ambulance was there within 2 minutes. They weren't able to save her life. They just said she was in a pool of blood.
Yeah, and not that it's ever a good time to kill somebody, but this was like ultimate peak of her career. Everybody was obsessed with her. She was breaking all these records, and to think that she was killed at such a young age is so ridiculous. I mean, so they're saying she was killed. She was 23, so she'd only be 53. Think of what she could have done in her lifetime.
I know. Oh, she would have been like J-Lo, Beyonce. I mean, I already think that she was.
J-Lo played her in the movie.
I know that's what's funny, but I think that she's like, I already think that she's already above that in some respects, but it's just kind of like she died and then never really got, you know what I mean? But like people still love her. I mean, her music's great. She seemed like she was a really nice person. She was married, young couple. You know what I mean? Like it was just like a sad story.
So I'd say, boo-hoo to you, Yolanda. Sorry that people are going after you in jail. I mean, you killed a really famous person that people were obsessed with. So, of course, people are going to be going after you. I also don't think you get to get out of prison because you killed a person and you clearly premeditated it. And you were convicted.
I don't know what this, like, it's... I mean, like, I'm sure the family's, like, satisfied that she's been in jail for a long time, but, like, when you leave these loopholes of, like, oh, you're eligible for parole in X amount of years, like, this 30 years crept up fast on me. So her family, too, right? Like, it just, they're still mourning her, everything. And to think that she could get out, like, she doesn't deserve it.
And then she's just gonna walk amongst them and be part of normal life after.
Yeah, she's like a psycho stalker. She definitely does not need to be out.
But where are you going to go? This is the question we always have with like Casey Anthony and everything, right? People know her face.
She's living her best life.
Well, that guy broke up with her, didn't he?
She'll find somebody else.
You have to go witness protection in my book because how are you just going to walk amongst everybody? Most people that are familiar with this case know your face. So you can't just like go get a job at like CVS
that's what I'm telling you.
Then,
like she'll get beat up outside of jail. Trust me.
Yeah, like really, honestly, she's better off there because at least there's some protection.
Okay, freak accidents.
All right, this one is so sad. The day after Christmas, the 66-year-old man had taken his 15-year-old grandson to go ice fishing. As he was drilling a hole in the ice, he unfortunately fell through. The grandson fell through as well, but somebody nearby saw it all go down. He tried to kayak over to help them. He was able to help the grandson get out, but they weren't able to pull the grandpop out. They were able, however, to keep his head above water until he was able to be rescued. So then he goes to the hospital and he's on life support. Totally separate the next day, the grandpop's wife goes to pick up his car from I guess, the area they were fishing. And then this teenager blew a red light, hit the car, and killed her in a car accident. And then a couple days after that, the grandfather died going off of life support.
What a terrible situation for this family. Like they lost they lost their grandmom on December 27th and then lost their grandpop on December 31st.
Yeah.
The freak thing this is really freak accident is that, you know, when I first read the story, I was like, well, if she was driving to go do something for him after he got in this bad accident, she was out of her like normal mind and she might have been crying or upset and that what's caused the accident. And it's like, no, she was a passenger in a vehicle that got killed.
Yeah,
like,
she was sitting in the back seat.
And who was driving the car?
I guess one of the kids or a family member or something.
God, it's just like so terrible for everybody involved because I'm sure the grandson feels terrible that like he was just trying to go fishing with his grandpop and then this whole event spiraled because of that. You know what I mean? And then whoever was driving the car and just it's just like how's this happen to one family? It's just so sad.
I don't know. And from their pictures and everything, they just looked like this cute older couple, you know, living a good life. And clearly it seemed like they must have cared about spending time with their family because he was taking the grandson fishing. So it's definitely really upsetting to think about. All right. In Brazil, they have these gigantic plastic bubbles on the beach. I immediately was like, this cannot be a good idea. And so they basically zip kids in these things. And then I guess there's this rope or a chain holding them down on the beach so they don't blow away. But the rope on this particular bubble that an 8-year-old boy was in detached from the ground. And then the boy drifted inside of the bubble into the sea. So then later on, this guy is in a boat, just like, you know, driving around, boating around. And then he sees this bubble, goes up to it, and is like, oh my God, there's a little boy in this bubble floating in the middle of the water. So they were like, you can't unzip the bubble because he could potentially suffocate or drown or get stuck or something because it's a big sheet of plastic.
So apparently these bubbles were popular in the United States at some point. I saw that Florida put out a warning that was just like, if anybody is offering these as a recreational activity, they are dangerous and do not go in them. Because they might be two different things because they have this ball that they advertise that you can walk on water and it looks like the same exact thing. And then there's this other thing called the Zorb ball. Remember we talked about it like last year that some kid was in one. It's a hamster ball. Like it looks like a giant hamster ball and some kid was on it and this gust of wind came and picked the kid up and like lifted him above the trees and people thought it was a balloon and stuff and it ended up they were like, oh my God, there is like a live child inside of that right now. So now you're talking about this story in Brazil where they got the memo that they should secure it because they get lifted up by the wind easily. But instead, this thing like rolls into the water. Like, did his family know that he was in the water? Were they actively trying to get him? Or
it seems like there was an emotional reunion. So I think they knew he blew away, but I don't know if it happened too fast and they couldn't figure out what to do. The guy on the boat was able to somehow use a rope to bring him in. I don't even understand how you would get a rope around that thing, but he's safe.
Wow. Yeah, that's it. So the issue that Florida put out was just like, not only can kids suffocate because there's not enough oxygen in there, but if there's a hole in there, then they could drown if water gets in it. It's just like not a good idea to ever do something like that.
And I wonder if you can unzip them from the inside too, or if you're only
No, that's what it said. That's what it said. It was like you're basically trapped in there, and if you're distressed, you might have a difficult time like letting people know that you need to get out because there's no escape door.
Wow. I don't understand who possibly thought this was a good invention.
Yeah, I don't know. But we could buy one right now. They're on sale online, like when I was looking them up today. So,
of course they are. This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
So speaking of Selena, I did a celebrity death dissection on Selena in The Gross Room years ago. I think back in 2020 I did that, but it really goes through all the details of her death, all of the circumstances, and then we go through like the damage that was caused by the bullet. And like we were talking about the different kinds of ammunition you can use and what damage it causes and stuff. And there's a couple other stories that we're going to talk about today. I don't want to give it away. We could talk about later in the episode that really go along with some different articles that I have in the gross room. So check it out.
Yeah, head over to thegrossroom.com for more info and to sign up.
Okay, so like we said earlier in the episode, we're the biggest true crime stories that happened over the past 2 weeks. Obviously, the terrorist attack and then the other one, all this other stuff. So we'll talk about that more at the end of this week on our special true crime episode. But we have some other smaller true crime stories that we could cover today. So let's get started with that.
All right, first in Georgia, these 4 boys aged 12 to 15, they were having a sleepover and playing video games. The 12-year-old went to sleep, and that's when the other kids thought this would be the best time to do this prank where they poured boiling water on his skin.
In all of these articles, I couldn't find any information of like what exactly these kids were thinking in this situation. Like what prank? Like what was the prank?
I don't know, and I'm wondering if it was something they saw on TikTok because, I mean, every other week on here we're talking about these stupid things people are getting into because they saw it on TikTok, and therefore it must be safe if it's on the internet, right? So I don't know if maybe they saw some, content creator or somebody they follow do something like this, or maybe they saw somebody pretend like it was boiling water, but I don't understand how at that age you don't know that hot water burns your skin, and by pouring it on another person, it's not going to end well.
I'm just it's like honestly upsetting to hear this because it's you know that kids do dumb shit all the time, but this is just the dumbest thing that I've ever heard in my life. Like calling it a prank. I don't understand what the prank is. I don't like. I understand if a kid's sleeping, right? We've had sleepovers before when I'm a little kid where you like take a kid's, clothes and put them in the freezer or something like that, right? Like you want to do something. We've done it to Gabe before where we put like whipped cream on his face while he's sleeping or something, right? It's funny.
Yeah, but that's funny. That's not giving somebody second-degree burns like this boy ended up having.
I could see like pouring cold water on I mean, like, listen, that wouldn't be cool to do somebody, but like it wouldn't hurt them, right? Like you want to shock them to wake them up, and maybe that was part of the prank. But the boiling water, like I don't even understand. That to me makes me think that these kids like that because they did get arrested, and it makes me think like they need to because they were trying to intentionally hurt them. Like I just don't understand. Like you're 12, that you just know. I'm sorry. If you've ever taken a shower, hot water, and that's not even boiling water. Like it's just dumb.
Well, I think he was the youngest one too, so they're even older. They went up to age 15. It's totally unacceptable.
Oh no, yeah, they should be arrested and in trouble, and like
they were. They were released to their families until their court hearings, but I don't know.
Like what the? I don't even understand. Were they doing drugs or something? Like something doesn't make sense about that.
I don't know. Because I can't fathom a world
like,
in which you think this
like
is funny.
This isn't like a prank, like, okay, you give the kid this, like, really hot pepper because you want to see them freak out because they're coughing too much. Like, that to me is a prank because kids don't really understand that, like, you can, like, cause an arrhythmia in somebody from something, like, stupid prank like that or whatever, right? Like, this is just, like, a common sense. You don't shoot somebody as a prank. Like, you're going to hurt them. You know what I mean? Like, something's, like, weird that children of that age just thought that would have been a good idea, like multiple children, right?
Yeah. In Brazil, this family gathered a couple days before Christmas, and they were enjoying a classic Brazilian Christmas cake. I mean, when I first started reading the story, I thought that sounded pretty delightful. But shortly after, 2 of the women eating the cake died, and a third had died the next day. And 2 other family members were hospitalized that also consumed the cake.
Yeah, so obviously when anything happens like this, they're going to do a quick investigation. And when they tested the people, not only the people that died, but the people who were sick, and then they also tested the cake, and then they tested the flour that made the cake, and all tests pointed to there being these abnormally high levels of arsenic in the cake. So,
And guess who didn't die? The woman who baked the cake, and her husband died a couple months before, mysteriously from food poisoning. So now they want to exhume his body and test it to double check, which I'm sure they'll find that it's consistent with what happened to the other family members.
I hope that, yeah. And the thing is that if you have, there's two different ways you can get poisoned with arsenic. So arsenic is considered a heavy metal, and you could either get acute exposure, which means you just get a large volume of it at one time. And in those cases, it's especially dangerous, but that doesn't really happen that often because people aren't like intentionally poisoning people as much these days as they used to. But you also, because it can occur naturally in the environment. So a lot of times people are getting accidental arsenic poisoning because they're exposed to small portions of it over a long period of time, which could lead to cancer and just like other symptoms. But like when you get the full load of it at once, like in a piece of cake that they actually said didn't taste right, you get like it causes nausea, vomiting, just, you know what I mean? And then obviously coma, death, which is what happened to most of the people that had it. So for her husband, if he just had these like acute symptoms of nausea, vomiting, just because that's like GI symptoms too. Like they could have just said, oh, he had some kind of GI bug and that's why he died. You know what I mean? That, and because the symptoms could kind of mimic each other. But in this case, I think she's definitely getting caught with this. I don't know why she's trying to kill all these people in her family, but
Well, yeah, because they were saying upon the initial investigation, it didn't seem like there was anything going on in the family, no disputes over inheritance, like money, anything like that. So they're kind of confused about it. I want to say a side note. Did you see a picture they showed of the cake?
no.
Okay, so they show this like bunt cake, right? And allegedly, 5 people have eaten slices of this cake. There was probably about an eighth of it cut out, and I just want to say if 5 members of our family ate a cake, the entire thing would be gone. So I don't even think they would have the rest to sample from.
Yeah, right? Exactly. That's funny. Maybe it
Yeah.
was at the end of a really big meal or something.
I don't know. I don't even think in the Qualtieri household that would matter in the slightest. That whole entire thing
No,
would be gone.
no.
And maybe in that case, you would never be able to test a comparison sample
No.
because we're all good.
I mean, but they tested, they said they tested the flour that she used to make it, and it was like in the flour too. Like I don't know what she was using. Like back in the day, it would be like rat poison or whatever like that. But
they said when they went through the home, they noticed that several of the food products were expired, and then most notably, there was a medicine bottle that contained a bizarre white liquid. And the medicine
was
bottle,
it like a medicine bottle that had a skull and crossbones on it?
That's what I imagined, but they said it was really unusual because the medicine bottle was for capsules and there was a white liquid in there. So
yeah,
clearly something
really
wasn't
interesting.
right.
But if you have acute exposure to it, it causes a disruption in chemical pathways in your cells that cause your organs to shut down, and that's what happened to these people. Like you can die pretty quick. And they were saying that when they tested the levels in the people, especially one of the ones that died, they had 350 times more than the lethal dose of arsenic in their system.
Yeah, that's real nice that your family comes over for Christmas dinner and then you kill all of them.
Exactly. Like, and if you're going to do it, like, you don't need that much. Like, they're saying that it tasted bad because you could taste it. Like, clearly you shouldn't even be able to taste it. That was why it was such a good poison of choice, because you could just drop and like nobody would notice it, you know?
Yeah.
Idiot. Like, at least you're going to kill somebody, do it right.
Exactly. All right, in New York, this chick was waiting for a bus and saw that this guy from a food truck was feeding pigeons. So then she noticed he started looking around to see if anybody was watching to see what he was doing. At that point, she decided maybe I should video what's going on. And the guy took a plastic bag and was trying to catch a pigeon, but was unsuccessful with the first one. Eventually captured one of the pigeons and then just brought it back into the food truck. She saw him come back out later and he was, washing his mouth out with water. So obviously that doesn't sit right if you see somebody bring a bird like this into a place where food is being prepared and served to people.
All right, I can go back and forth with this. I always try to see both sides of the story. Like, okay, it's gross, right? You're seeing someone capture birds live and what the fuck is he doing with it? I don't know. Bringing it into a food cart that sells chicken, though, that makes me semi-suspicious that that's what's happening there. But if you're gonna eat a chicken, what's the difference if you eat a chicken or a pigeon? Like you're still eating a bird. Like us Americans have this very like, oh, that animal. I could never eat a dog, but I could eat a coyote. Like it's the same freaking thing. You know what I mean? Like these lines that we put up of I
Who
could
do you
eat
know
this
that's
bird.
eating a coyote?
Oh, on my road trip, I just saw some crazy ass beef jerky of every single different kind of animal. Alligators.
Well, see, some people are cool with it.
Yeah, like people eat, I'm just saying, like people eat all sorts of different meats. Like what's the difference between a cow and a dog or a pig? And like they're all the same, right? Like it's because we put up these barriers of this one. Okay, pigeon, we've determined gross. Can't eat that. But chicken, yes, we can eat that. I mean, think about it. It's kind of ridiculous. And people eat pigeons in this country all the time. Like, did you ever see it for sale on a menu? It's called squab. It's like
like fancy restaurants.
Okay, so that's okay. You won't get it from a food cart, but you could get it at a fancy restaurant.
I don't have a problem with people eating pigeons. I have a problem with somebody just like scooping one up.
No, well, that's why this whole thing is frowned upon because it's just weird. Like if someone had a chicken like as a pet walking around and you just saw them pick up a live animal to go like kill it to eat it, you would be disturbed too. Like most people just aren't whatever. But well, I get it. Like
he got fired and the boss said he was just trying to rescue the bird, even though he was trying to grab multiple birds.
That's what I wanted to say. Like the owner's making it worse because he's just like, no, in our country, we love pigeons. And there was simply one that had a wounded leg. So he was trying to capture it to put a bandage around its...
grab multiple birds, so like that argument like, doesn't work.
Yeah, and then he's just like, and in his country, it's different here. He didn't know the laws here, whatever, and which is another thing that's completely understandable, right? I have a funny story to tell you about this. Actually,
oh my God,
there were these two boys that moved to my town from Italy when I was a teenager, and they were both hot, and they drove really good cars, and like, of course, I wanted to date one of them, right? Well, they were from Italy, and they used to tell us all the time that their dad would like kill pigeons and squirrels in the yard and like cook them and eat them, which I would be like, oh my God, that is so disturbing and stuff. Like when I was a kid, that just grossed me out so much. You know what I mean? But like, really, like, I don't know. The only thing that grosses me out about it is like, if you want to have squab, for example, at like a fancy restaurant, it's from like one that was raised on a farm and doesn't have exposure to as many, well, you would think, as many like bacteria and fungus and all that, and viruses and stuff like that. So they're like cleaner, right? But I mean, if you listen, when I was just on my trip, I just drove by a dairy farm, and like I almost don't ever want to drink milk again because the smell was so fucking gross.
Well, let's not forget the hay milk situation.
No, I know. Yeah, that time we had milk from the farm that tasted like hay. No, this farm smelled so bad. It was like, I can't even explain. It wasn't quite like a decomp smell, a little bit like a decomp smell, but like a bad milk smell mixed with poop smell. And I was just like, when you think of dairy, you want to have like ice cream and milk and stuff. And I'm like, this smell is so bad. It smelled for miles too. It was so gross. But I'm just saying, like, anytime you're dealing with animal products, they're gross. Like, so a pigeon is a gross animal in the city, but like, is it any better? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it is.
I think the problem is the way in which it was handled, not the pigeon itself.
No, I think it's how it's handled too, though. Like because people here like would not. You look at pigeons as being like a dirty animal, right? Like a city. And they are. They have like certain fungal infections that they could give to people that are immunosuppressed and stuff. They're kind of gross. But like, if you went to this cart and got the food, like, are you thinking right now, like, have I been eating pigeon? Did I eat pigeon? Did this guy just run out of chicken and like, Like, what's happening there?
Yeah, whatever. But it's how you want to individually process it. That's how
I mean, listen, like the video is shocking, really. Like you're just like this. There's no other explanation for it. There just isn't.
No, there isn't. I mean, I think the most shocking part of the story is you don't often just see an adult grab a plastic bag and catch a bird with their bare hands and then bring it into a food cart.
I love that the girl was just like, you know what? Some don't look right here. Let me just pull out my phone and record this.
Yeah. Well, let's get into this other food story. This woman ordered a pizza to be delivered to her motel room. She was there celebrating her boyfriend's birthday with her 5-year-old daughter. So when that delivery chick got there, the bill was $33.10. So the woman tried to pay with a 50, and she said she had wanted some change back. And then the delivery girl got really pissed that she wanted change back and said they couldn't do that. I want to say a side note, it's kind of ridiculous to expect a $17 tip on $33.
Oh no, that's what you have to tip delivery drivers now. That's
over 50% tip.
But that's expected now. Do you
As
ever
a
see
former industry worker, I would say that's ridiculous because the average tip is 20%. If you want to give more than that, great. If you don't, whatever. So basically what happened was because the delivery girl was refusing to give her change back for the 50, then the woman was like, all right, well, I need to find smaller bills, and then only ended up giving her a $2 tip, which is also messed up. I mean, if I was in the situation where it was one or the other, I'd give more. What would you do?
Well, no, I don't know if I would want to get. I listen. I don't even understand this story anyway because it sounds like 1995 right now. Like, who the fuck orders pizza and pays with cash and has a
My
person
husband
come to their?
does.
Why?
Because that's how
you
he
could
is.
You could do this 100% non-confrontational. Like, why would you even want to talk to the delivery person? Just have them leave it on your porch and walk away.
I don't know, but basically she ended up with a $2 tip, and that pissed her off even more. So later in the night, the family was sleeping in the motel room, and suddenly somebody started aggressively knocking on the door. I don't know if the people broke in or they answered the door, but it was the delivery driver with a man, and he was armed, and they were wearing masks, and then all of a sudden the delivery driver started stabbing the woman.
Why? Like, I don't even understand this story at all. Like, what, I don't understand what she was so pissed off about. Like, I mean, I get that you're pissed off that you didn't get a good tip, but, like, really, the most confusing part is the guy that she was with. Like, how did she convince a guy that she was with to go to this room and hold someone at gunpoint because they didn't give his girlfriend or whatever a good tip?
And he hasn't been identified yet.
It's just, like, weird. Do you think that there's more to the story? It just sounds... I mean, obviously, like, people are nuts and could do stuff all the time. It just, like, why would you go back? Because you know that person has that money. Did they eventually steal the rest of that money?
I mean, I would say that I think it is possible. We live in this world where people are just not okay right now mentally, and I think the littlest things are pushing people over the edge. And this could be one thing. You shouldn't, like... In my opinion, she set herself up for failure because let's say she really didn't have change. It didn't seem like it went down that way where she just didn't have it and then they had to figure something out. It seems like she wanted the bigger tip and thought the woman would give her a bigger tip.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, she walked in there and was like, oh, this bill is $33 and like I could make potentially almost $20 off this transaction. Like, in her mind, like, that's what she thought she was getting. And then I don't know, like, it's just
you can't kill somebody because they gave you a bad tip.
And she stabbed the woman in front of her daughter.
Yeah, a 5-year-old.
And
14 times she was stabbed.
And then she went to the hospital and found out that she was pregnant. Like,
oh yeah, I totally forgot that part.
Yeah,
so, yeah, she was in the hospital. I mean, like, after getting stabbed.
Her
like,
night really sucked. Like. Unless, I mean, if she wanted the kid, then I guess it was a joyous night. But, like, could you just imagine like, not knowing you're pregnant, not being happy about it, and being like, cool, like, some bitch tried to stab me, and then I went and found out that I was having a kid.
I just think it's truly a possibility that this person was just not mentally well, and then this little thing just set them over the edge. I mean, there also could be more to the story. What if the woman's boyfriend was her ex-boyfriend or some man she was in love with?
There's more. Listen, I'm telling you that there's more to the story. I just I think that everybody was just complete strangers. Because, like, you could see her stabbing her right away out of rage. But, like, to leave and come back is almost like the insanity defense goes away in that sense, you know?
I've been
And
stiff
getting a
so
person.
many. I've been stiff so many times in the 10 years I worked in a restaurant, and I never once.
You never once stabbed someone to death.
It's not even about stabbing somebody. It's like you get pissed and you're like, that person's a dick, and then you move on, right? What's the point of sitting and thinking all day and then trying to find where they live? I mean, think about this. She got a $2 tip, which everybody could argue is a really shitty tip. It's under 10%. But the 20% on that bill would have been approximately $7. So it's not like they tipped her $2 and she was supposed to be getting a $200 tip. It was a difference of $5.
What is the appropriate tip for, like, when you get delivery to your house? Like, I always do 20% just because, like, at least 20%. But what's the appropriate thing for delivery? Because I feel like there was a long time that it was just like, oh, you just give the delivery driver like $1 or $2, and now it's like,
I think
what
20%.
are you supposed for delivery drivers too? Is that like an unsaid rule now? I don't know anymore, because like my whole entire trip, I just tipped like a shit ton of people that I wouldn't normally think would get a tip. Like the person at the pizza place that's
this is a
taking
conversation
a piece of
coming
pizza
up
off of a tray and putting it on a plate for me. Like, why do they get a tip? I don't know.
because that's not all they're doing. You're seeing that they're taking a piece of pizza off the plate.
Well,
but
what are they doing for me?
They're cooking the pizza. They're doing a bunch of other stuff.
Then you could use that theory for every single fucking thing in the world. Like,
No,
come on.
I think
It's
you need
out
to
of
apply
control.
this. I think you need to apply this more to. I've heard that at places where people are getting Botox, like med spas, they're asking for tips, and it's like you should not be giving tip to somebody giving you a medical procedure.
Yeah, I mean, but I see what they're saying. Like, but this is the problem, because this is your generation too, by the way, have blown this thing out of total freaking proportion. But like, if this is
Gen Z. Don't blame millennials. This is Gen Z.
This is the theory of like, okay, well, if you're gonna blow dry someone's hair, you're gonna tip them, right? Well, then if you're gonna give someone Botox, you should tip them. Like, it's just like, where do you draw the line? You should tip us right now for talking to you. Like, just come on. It's so fucking ridiculous.
This is an argument everybody could have about everything.
But you're saying this about the pizza place, right? But that's like a pizza place. But then, like, well, then why don't you tip the people at McDonald's? It's the same freaking thing.
Yeah, but what's different about a server at a restaurant taking your order and bringing you a plate than the person at the pizza counter taking your order and bringing you the pizza? It's the same exact thing.
No, I'm talking about, I was at like a food court situation and all the pizzas are on display, right? On a piece of glass, they're on display.
Yeah,
and
I know
say,
what you're
I want
talking
that
about.
one, and I point to it. And they take it off the tray and turn around and stick it in the oven and take it out.
Guess what happens at a restaurant? A waitress puts your order in the computer, and then they go in the kitchen and they grab a plate just like that person's grabbing a slice of pizza, and they're giving it to you.
Okay, well then go tip the person at McDonald's then.
Well, they should be.
No. You are off your freaking rocker. Absolutely
All right,
not.
I'm over this. Let's move on.
Okay, medical news.
All right, so this guy was sleeping on his couch, and suddenly his bulldog started chewing on his toe down to the bone, but apparently this ended up saving his life.
Yeah, so his wife, the guy was sleeping, and his wife was like, honey, wake up. The dog just ate your toe. All the way down to the bone. And when he didn't realize it because he had no feeling in his foot. So when he went to the hospital, obviously the first choice was to be like, let's clean this thing out and let's give some antibiotics and make sure that this infection doesn't get into the bone or anything. But then they were like, okay, let's find out why you have no feeling in your leg. And they found out that 2 arteries in his leg were actually clogged and he had peripheral artery disease. And that's what was causing it. So he thinks that if he didn't have the dog bite on his toe, they never would have been able to see this. And he probably would have ended up having to get an amputation at some point because he was losing so much oxygenated blood flow to his leg.
That is so crazy because I think in any other circumstance, if your dog was chewing on your foot, you would immediately wake up from the pain. But he just woke up from the nap and was like, I don't even feel this. And his toes totally chewed
Yeah,
through.
I mean that could happen. It's called neuropathy. It could cause numbness in the affected area, and you could lose a total loss of sensation. That's why they tell you a lot of times if you have poor oxygen flow in your legs, like you shouldn't be going and getting pedicures. Have you ever heard that with like older people that are diabetic and stuff? Because not only could you not feel if you got, sometimes, when we go get our pedicures, like it hurts afterwards and stuff.
Well, I only have heard of this in the sense of my father-in-law has neuropathy and he's not allowed to use like heating pads or anything because
Yeah,
he
'cause-
wouldn't be able to tell if it was burning him, basically.
So it's kind of the same thing. So they said that they're probably going to be able to put stents in his legs. So when you have clogs, if you have like blockages in the artery, they could put a stent in, which is like it could hold open the artery so that the blood flow can get better. So I mean, I don't know if he's out of the woods yet, because if he has such bad oxygen flow, that toe might have difficulty healing, especially from a dirty animal bite. But if he gets out of the woods with that and they could save his toe, then that would be good. But I don't know when they're saying, when he said that it saved his life, I guess he had blocked arteries in his legs as well as his heart, I'm assuming, because like if you have blocked arteries in your legs, that wouldn't necessarily be life-threatening, right? Like as it would be if it was your coronary arteries. But in theory, if you have peripheral artery disease in your legs, you like a lot of your arteries in your body will also be affected and could also be clogged. So that's probably what they're talking about there.
All right, this next case is wild. So in Germany, this 32-year-old was diagnosed with a rare cancer and had surgery to have his tumor removed. And then during the procedure, the surgeon accidentally cut his hand. He said he took care of it immediately, didn't think anything of it. And then months later, the surgeon noticed a small lump developing where he had injured himself, and it turned out to be a malignant tumor.
So what's weird about this story is that it happened a long time ago, back in 1996, but it's been in like a lot of articles this week for some reason. So I don't know why it's becoming popular, but I just thought it would be something cool to talk about, because it is possible to catch cancer from other people in rare situations such as this. Because normally, if you put tissue from another person inside of your body will reject it. Like it's the same theory with an organ transplant, right? Like you get someone's kidney put in you, and the first thing is that your body just wants to get rid of it, and your immune system attacks it and recognizes it as foreign. And the same exact thing should have happened to this doctor when he had these tumor cells that cut through his finger. His body should have attacked it and recognized it as foreign, but for whatever reason, it didn't. And the reason that they know that he got the cancer from his patient is because they tested the DNA from the tumor from the patient and from him, and they were able to determine that they were genetically both the same exact tumor. So it's like a really rare, interesting case, but stuff like this could kind of happen within people too, which is, remember we were talking about a couple years ago that procedure that they would remove fibroids from women with that tool that was called a morcellator, and they would they were taking out certain ones that were malignant without knowing it, and they were basically seeding it through their body as they were pulling it out the body. And that could happen sometimes with biopsies. Like if you do let's say you do a lung biopsy and there's cancer, like when you go in with the needle and touch that tumor, you can like pull it out and like basically like pull it through their body as you're pulling the needle out. So they use this special needle that is like it's a hollowed out needle with a needle that goes inside it. So there's like a metal surrounding, so it's not pulling through the person's actual tissue, And it could be like there's been cases of patients getting or doctors getting HPV from patients when they use the cautery tool from the smoke. It's like really
Oh, wow.
crazy. Like, yeah, so you can, like, in theory, catch cancer from people, but it's just not common at all, just because your body normally is like fighting against that.
So I know you guys in the lab or when you're doing autopsies on certain diseases will take extra precautions. Is this something you would take this case and be more mindful of that just in case, or it's just so rare that you wouldn't take the extra steps in case you were like in case you cut yourself by accident like this guy did?
I mean,
'Cause I know,
there's nothing that you could really do more than the normal
because
if you get
don't, if
cut.
you like cut yourself during like an HIV autopsy or something, you have to immediately go get
Well, you
tests
should,
done or
yeah.
go to,
If you get cut during an autopsy or dissecting surgicals, you should go document it at the emergency room, just because in case anything happens. But they can give you medications for HIV, but for Hep C, for example, if you get cut on it, they're just kind of like, okay, wait and see what happens. And I guess like if you end up getting a Hep C, then you would be able to get some kind of, I don't know if it's compensation or coverage or whatever, because you got hurt at work. That's why you should document it, because technically you caught it at work. But I mean, there's nothing that you could do aside from the normal protocol of like getting sutures if you need it and cleaning out the wound and everything like that. So, and I mean, like PAs get cut all the time, so there would be more documented cases of it happening, but normally your immune system will take care of that for you.
yeah. It's just really interesting because I feel like I've never heard of anything like this before. So as like a lay person, it's interesting to see that somebody caught cancer.
I don't think it's that. I think it's interesting. I'm very interested in it, but I also know, just because of what I know from tumor seeding, as far as like pulling it, that you could pull it through your body. Actually, I think that's what happened to Nanny when she died, believe it or not. When she had, so my grandmom had gallbladder cancer, and they went to remove her gallbladder, but before they even did the surgery, they knew that it was suspicious. And at that time, they shouldn't have done the surgery the way that they did it, so they did it laparoscopically, and that was making a very small incision and like pulling it out. And when they did that, they pulled the tumor all out, like through that incision. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when just that particular way of doing it was like what was caused her disease to advance more quickly, because it seeded it through. Like ultimately she would have had died from it anyway, but because the way that they did that, it was like all in the previous incision sites. So that was, it's just something like surgeons are aware of, and it could happen with biopsies and stuff like that too.
Interesting. All right, so obviously during this time of year, there's a lot of celebrating between all the holidays and New Year's and everything. So there's an increase in drinking fizzy drinks, and in particular, champagne, prosecco, everything like that. So because of this increase, dentists see this seasonal phenomenon called prosecco teeth.
Yeah, they said it's a combination of sugar and the acidic drink, and the carbonation can eat away at the enamel, and then the sugar, causes bacteria in the mouth to overgrow, and which could further break down the enamel on the teeth. And they see it particularly on the incisors. It's just really interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, because I feel like, I don't know. I was at first reading this like, I hope it's not all carbonated drinks, because I pretty much exclusively drink seltzer, but it seems like it's this perfect combination of the carbonation, acid, sugars, everything like that.
I think because we always ask that, because like Gabe exclusively drinks fizzy drinks, and I think that we've talked about that to the dentist, and there's some people that are just like, it's equivalent to water, it's the same thing, and other people think that it can damage the enamel on the teeth a little bit. I don't know if that's like written in stone or studies done about that or whatever, but I think the biggest thing is that the acid level and also the sugar is a combination. I mean, it's just, which is why it's terrible to drink soda and Mountain Dew, all that stuff like rots holes in your teeth.
Well, they have some tips for preventing prosecco teeth. So those are enjoy prosecco in moderation or switch to a drink that's less acidic and sugary. Also, they say use a straw to reduce contact with your teeth. I thought that was an interesting tip. Drink water to rinse away the harmful acids and sugar. Chew sugar-free gum to stimulate saliva production. Eat cheese. We will take any excuse to eat cheese. And then it says wait 30 minutes to an hour after drinking prosecco before toothbrushing to give enamel time to remineralize.
I don't like prosecco.
I think it's pretty delicious, but I'm not a big drinker, so.
I'm not a big drinker either, and this is how you know, like, I'm not. When people say that it's sweet, I'm like, that's not sweet to me. I don't know. I guess compared to like another drink, people think it's sweet, but like I just still get like, I
Well,
don't get it.
You like Moscato, which is disgusting, so.
I don't really like Moscato either. I don't like, but yeah, because it tastes like apple or like grape juice or something. Like I just don't. I'm not into it.
We need to give you a finer palate over there.
I don't need to drink anything, so I don't care. It's fine. If you're making me do it, then give me some juice with barely any alcohol in it.
Okay.
Okay. Other death news.
All right, so we're going to start with some plain drama, end with some plain drama. So on Christmas Day, this United flight... Oh my God, I didn't even realize this was another United story too. So on Christmas Day, a United flight from Chicago landed in Maui, and that's when they discovered there was a dead body in the wheel well.
So this is the other case that I was referring to that is in the gross room this week. It was from a while ago, back in December 2023, about a stowaway, and the post was called "It's Raining People," and you'll know why in a minute, because there was a person that, again, same situation, went into a commercial airliner into the wheel well, and the same thing happened. So there's different things that could happen as far as cause of death in stowaways. Number one, the temperature is super, super low. They were saying it could be as low as -58 to -76 degrees Fahrenheit. So
Wow.
hypothermia. Let's mention also that most of these people die, although there's been a few documented cases. Then you have the situation with the lack of oxygen up there, so people can die from asphyxial deaths as well. And then in the case that I'm talking about in the gross room called "It's Raining People," this person fell once the landing gear went down. So they were still very high up in the air, but you know, the landing gear goes down when you're getting ready to land. The person fell out and like onto the sidewalk, onto somebody's driveway, and like splattered everywhere.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How would you even figure out where let's say you were at your house and this happened in your driveway and you went outside. How would you even figure out where that person came from?
That's why I called it "It's Raining People." Like, it's so crazy. It's just somebody's driveway in like a normal suburban looking neighborhood, and there's just like a dead body, just like who knows where. I mean, it fell from the sky, literally, like, and
This happened-
brains and everything all over the place.
This happened in the story, the real life story that inspired that stupid movie Cocaine Bear. So like this guy was flying drugs on this small plane and he jumped out of it and his parachute failed. And then he splattered in somebody's driveway.
Oh my God.
And then when they figured out what happened, you know, all this cocaine was dropped in the woods and then this bear had ripped it open and then they ended up making that horrible horror movie.
Like, what? I just don't know what makes people do this, if it's a known thing that you usually don't survive doing it unless it's just an act of desperation. I just want to know how people even have access, because think about this. Like, if a guy could get into the wheel well and be in the landing gear and found dead or whatever, well then, like, who's to say that that person doesn't have like a bomb on them? Like, why do they even have access to the wheel well? And
Yeah,
did
and they're
these people
saying
that
that-
were on that plane know that this happened? You know what I mean? Like, I don't like that.
I don't like it either. They're saying the wheel well is accessible from the outside of the aircraft, and at this time, they don't know how the person accessed it. So, was it like
That's
an airport
alarming
employee?
to me.
Exactly. And was it an airport employee, or did somebody sneak in there that had no affiliation with the airport. I don't know. It's very concerning though.
I've heard this story a couple times over the past couple years. It's like this isn't. I mean, it's not common, but it's not the first time that this has happened.
No, it's definitely not the first time it's happened. And you were saying earlier that a couple people have survived it, right?
Yeah, it's just it's scary just thinking, like being on an airplane and thinking, like yesterday I was on an airplane just thinking like, oh, that's cool. Like someone just has access down there.
I'm honestly overflying, I think, from between, these couple plane stories, which you can't help the passengers on your plane, but there was also the 2 plane crashes in the last 2 weeks too in Russia and South Korea. I mean, it just really does not make me feel good
I
about
hate
flying.
watching those videos. Because it's just like, we're talking about this with the life preserver vest, and it's just like, if something like you just have to pray that nothing happens, because if something happens, like you're pretty much fucked. And if you're not, you're going to just have like a horrible PTSD situation for the rest of your life if you actually survive it, like the freaking Alaska airliner when the door flew off. Like I can't. Or that lady that got sucked out, the Southwest airline one, which we have a high profile death dissection on as well.
Well, yeah, and even little things like Ricky was on a plane once and somebody had a vape in their checked bag, which was underneath, and then I guess the button pressed in because something pushed up against it and it caught on fire, and then they had to turn around and make an emergency landing.
So this person ahead of us in line at the airport yesterday had a like one of those e-scooters, and me and Gabe were like, they're not going to let this person on with that battery, right? They're the ones that cause all those fires in New York all the time, right?
Yeah,
We're just
of course
like,
they are.
they're not putting that on the plane, are they? We were just like, no, they can't. But I guess they did. The guy was in line to check it.
Yeah, they 100% let those things on.
Oh my God, how scary.
All right, let's move on to questions of the day. Every Friday at the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram account, you guys could head over to our story and ask whatever question you want. First, have you ever had to do an autopsy on an unsolved case? And if so, tell us about it.
I would say like almost every autopsy is an unsolved case, right? That's like the reason that we're doing it. I mean, sometimes they know or have an idea about what happened, but ultimately they want us to do the autopsy to really prove what happened and to solve it. So I would say,
well, I would assume they're asking about like famous cold cases or something. Like you had talked about before how when you were at the ME, you had come across the boy in the box. They had like some stuff there pertaining to that
but
case.
that wasn't anything I was involved with. It was just stuff that was in the closet, which I just thought was super cool, just from like old cases that weren't unsolved. So no, I've never done anything like that.
All right, next, do body blood and menstrual blood look different under the microscope?
Yes, they do.
Explain.
When you look at normal blood under the microscope, you would with menstrual blood, you would see the same as normal blood, except you would see endometrial cells, because ultimately, like when you're having your period, you're shedding your endometrial lining. So when you see the blood with those like chunks of stuff in it, that's just your endometrial lining coming off, and you will see it underneath the microscope. You see some other like inflammatory cells and things like that too. But yeah, it definitely looks different.
All right, last, do you think you'll ever come to Europe for a talk or a live show?
Well, now that I've been told we're never going on airplanes again, no. I'd love
I'll
to
take a boat, Titanic style.
I
kidding,
want
that's
to go to
worse.
Europe. I told you guys I've never been there. I've never been anywhere. So I want to go, and so it's just a matter of going. Like I don't know what to say. Convincing Gabe to go really is the problem.
If one of you knows anybody that could host us, set us up, put us up in a cute little hotel room, give us a good opportunity to come to Europe, we would love to come.
Yes, for sure.
Pretty much anywhere. I don't think we're biased. I think we really want to go to, England, Italy, France, all the majors. But we'll go
I'll go to the
anywhere.
minors too. I don't care. I want to go everywhere, but just hasn't had the opportunity. And like Gabe, honestly, like our trips are based because Gabe likes to drive and do road trips. We drove 4,000 miles this time. And
I think
like if he could drive to Europe, we'd be going all the time, but like he doesn't really love going on planes. He will though if I like really make him. So if you guys are like, Nicole, you could come here, then I'll be like, we're going here. But
I think we have a lot of listeners in the UK, so I think that'll probably be our best bet for doing something where a decent amount of people come. And I would really like to go there. I've never been. I'd like to check out, all the cool stuff like Buckingham Palace. I'm sure some of you don't think that's cool, but I'm really
like anybody that
historical
lives there
sites
is
like that.
probably like this is terrible.
Also, there's this chick that tattoos, Gilmore Girl tattoos there. She specializes in them, and I love them all. So I'd love to get a tattoo by her.
Okay.
We'll have to take Mother Knows Death International, so. All right, well, thank you guys so much. We'll be back later in the week with our true crime extravaganza, so we are looking forward to seeing you then.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.